Greetings, everyone. This is DeBunkTV. I'm Bub, and that is Carl. How's everybody doing? Hope you're doing good. Our goal here is to help you guys think critically, what I would call think biblically. We're trying to teach you how to think and not what to think. And a lot of what we're going to do is be unpacking our debunked videos, which, by the way, you can get every debunked video we've ever done at getdebunked.org. They're free. We want you guys to get them and use them and pass them on. Today, we're actually going to be talking about this one where we debunked that there is no truth. It's number 9. You can find it on the website and watch it. But we're going to show it to you. Carl, how you doing?
I am a blessed man, Bub. Yes. Totally blessed.
Yeah, I agree. You are a blessed man. We're going to talk about a pretty big subject here.
Well, you know, you got your truth, and I got my truth on that topic. So, you know.
That's true. It's true for you anyway. It's not true for me. You speak your truth, baby, and we're going to make it work. The best way we know how to do this is to start it off with the actual debunked video. Yes. This is debunked number 9, and then get ready. We're going to unpack this in actually 2 episodes because it's that deep of a subject. Watch, and we'll see you in a minute. A telling thing happened a while back when Jesus was standing in front of Pontius Pilate. It's right here in the Bible, John 18:37. Jesus says to him, "For this purpose I was born, and for this purpose I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice." Now, Pilate says this. Wait for it. He says, "What is truth?" Shabam! There it is, the big kahuna, the spicy enchilada, the fizzy lifting drink, the question of the ages. And it's not much different today, which is why you hear claims like, "It's true for you, but not for me," or "There is no truth," or "Truth is relative, bro," or the ever so popular "Speak your truth." Now, these things all sound nice and sweetie sweet, but what in the world do they mean? Well, let's take "It's true for you, but not for me." Now, in all honesty, doesn't the person who says this to you want you to believe what he's saying? He's assuming that his relativistic claim is universally true, right? Everything is relative, I guess, except his relativism. Now, if something can only be true for me, which it can't, then it doesn't apply to you or anyone else, so what's the point in saying it? But if it is true for everyone, then the claim is wrong, because it's only claiming to be true for me and not for you. Get it? Okay, maybe it's not clear right this second, but things that contradict themselves, like this claim, cannot be true. What about the claim there is no truth? Oh, yet another statement that demolishes itself by its own standard. After all, is that claim true? If so, it's wrong. If the claim is not true, then it's true that the statement "there is no truth" is not true, which means there is truth, which makes the claim false. Moving on to the popular "Speak your truth." I gotta ask you, in all seriousness, is there really your truth and my truth? Truth is what is. It corresponds to reality. It's black and white, either or, fact kind of stuff, right? Tiny Tammy tossed the toy pterodactyl tenderly into the Thames that Tuesday, or she didn't. It's pretty simple, really. Truth is truth, and it doesn't change with a pronoun. Now, you might disagree and throw your hands up in objection, that is, until, of course, you are on the receiving end of a lie, somebody else's truth that contradicts reality. Let's say you deposited $100 into the bank yesterday, but the banker's truth is that you didn't. Your sweet hundo, gone.
Oh no.
Let's say you got every answer on every test right, but the teacher's truth is that you flunked the whole grade. Now you have to repeat it. Your summer, gone. See, I think you get it. And I think you'd be fighting pretty hard for the truth, the thing that corresponds to reality in those specific scenarios, because lies, other people's truths that aren't true, have huge consequences. Relativism is not only flawed, it's unlivable and unsustainable. And let's be honest, nobody wants a relative answer when they ask a real question, especially if it's directions to a gas station when you have to go to the bathroom. But wait a second, what if I say, my favorite candy is M&M's, and you say your favorite candy is Snickers? See, what's true for me is not true for you in that sense, right? Well, actually, wrong. See, I'm saying it's true that my favorite candy is M&M's, and you are saying it's true that your favorite candy is Snickers. We're simply stating the truth about our preferences. Now, you gotta watch out for preferences, beliefs, and opinions trying to sneak their way into Truth's exclusive club. After all, you can prefer that you have a blue hat when you only have a white one, but it doesn't change the facts. You can believe the moon is made out of cheese, but it doesn't make it true. And it might be your opinion that 5 plus 5 is actually 13, but you'd be wrong. See, tricky word games don't change the truth. They get you nowhere. As Double Dubs would say, you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir. But what about morality? Ah, that's the big one. One person thinks it's wrong to commit adultery, and another thinks it's not. So the one might say, I'm glad you have your truth, baby, but it doesn't work for me. First of all, what you think about the truth doesn't change it. A thing is either true or not, even moral duties and obligations. Second, truth is not dependent on the subject, that is, you or me. It's objective. So whether it works for us or not doesn't change what's actually true. Third, since these two claims are in direct opposition to one another, only one can be true. This is the irrefutable, unstoppable, unbreakable, incontrovertible law of non-contradiction, smashing through the nonsensical, irrational, and weak wall of hocus-pocus relativism. And, curiously, here we are today right where Pilate was, having to deal with the one who calls himself the way, the truth, and the life, claiming that no one gets to the Father, that is God, except through him. That's either true or it's not. And we can either deal with it head on, or we can, like Pilate and like Romans declares, suppress the truth and unrighteousness, which leads us to make claims like, what's true for you is not for me. Truth is relative. There is no truth, etc., all of which heretofore have been debunked. Adios. Well, there's that video. So that's all you need. Well, I mean, leave it alone. Just watch this 64 times in a row.
That's it. All you have to do is, if you watch it enough times, you'll probably grab some of it.
Stick in. Yeah, they're fast on purpose.
Intentionally so.
Yes, and we're loving with the response.
Absolutely.
This one is really great for culture today.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff going on. I think where we need to start is really how we define. I mean, this is what is truth.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll pass that over to you. You got a good definition from the dictionary.
We go to Websters, and I think that's a great way to do it. You go to Websters, and Websters gives us a definition. It says, being in accord with fact or reality, which is in the debunked. And the second one is fidelity to an original or to a standard. So, I mean, there you go. That's what truth is. I think first what we have to do is make sure that people understand, if you're going to have that original, what you need is what's called a standard referent. Yeah. And the standard referent, if you're anything like me, man, when I first heard that term, I'm like, what in the world is a standard referent? So I had to look it up, and I finally got a definition. And this is what it says. In physical science, a common or standard referent is needed to begin the study of the physical universe. Well, the exact same thing is true for moral issues.
Right.
If there is no standard referent, if there's no thing that we can compare what everybody thinks by, then it's going to become what we see. It's a free-for-all.
Yeah. So, well, give us a stand, then explain that a little bit.
Okay.
Since you already talked about a referent, what do you mean?
Simple illustration is, I ask people all this all the time. I say, okay, so how tall am I? And, people always guess 6 foot, 6'3", 6'4", and I'm always messing with them. I say, no, that's way too short. And then what I do is I pull out my ruler.
Yes.
And I got a little tiny ruler. It's this big.
Yeah.
And I say, see, I'm actually 12 foot tall. And then the people are like, oh, no, your ruler's no good. No, my ruler's right. I made it myself. I triple checked it. It's perfect. No, your ruler's no good. Why is it no good? Well, because it doesn't fit with a standard. Oh, hold up. Then my response back to him is, who do you think you are, you closed-minded, intolerant, bigoted, opinionated hick? You're trying to jam your ruler down my throat. What makes your ruler right and my ruler wrong, right?
Right.
And so you flesh that out. You play a little bit with it. But then you got to get serious. It's like, look, how do we know which ruler is right? Right. There's only one way. You have to have the standard referent. And so guess what? You get on a plane, you fly to Paris, and outside of Paris, there's a museum that has all the official weights and measures. And when you compare those two rulers with the original, guess what? Yep. The one that they're all saying is right. Not because they believe it, not because they were trained it, not because they were very sincere. Right. Because guess what? I tell them all the time, I show that little ruler, and I say, look, guys, you could be raised in a culture that teaches you from day one that this is a foot. You could believe with all your heart, be totally sincere, and be totally wrong. Yeah. And so you've got to have that standard referent.
And that standard fits into the second kind of definition of truth, right? It's kind of like the people that are really good at spotting counterfeits.
Yes.
They're good because they know the real thing.
Exactly.
So the authentic $100 bill, they can read and go, no, something's off here, because they've studied the original really well. And that's another way of having the standard. Absolutely. It's an agreed upon set of things that still works, and now everyone that has agreed upon it has to use it, or the things would fall apart. I mean, imagine you're being an architect and going, I got a whole other standard, so when he calls someone in Europe and goes, I need a 15-foot wall, and a 3-inch wall comes back, everyone's like, well, that was my truth. I sent you. It would go nuts, right?
Everything would fall apart. And you talk about the counterfeit bill thing. My son is a bank manager. Yeah. And that's exactly it. He's like, look, we handle the real stuff all the time. As soon as something comes in,
hold it up in the light, they get
you
all
just
that.
know.
They get all that
I've got a great video that I use sometimes with a Rolex dealer. And the Rolex says, look, the first thing that we do when somebody brings in a Rolex and they want to get a valuation on it, he says, we check the heft.
Yes.
And I was like, dude, that's exactly what we need to do.
And they probably handle hundreds a day.
That's exactly what he says. He says, man, we handle these things all day long, so when something comes in and just feel it, it's not right.
And that's true, because, I have my backpack. I carry it so much with the same stuff when I leave the house. I'm like, whoa,
something's not there.
Something's in the back, and that's just everyday use. Imagine
Yep.
if you train. So that standard referent is really applicable to that kind of claim.
Absolutely.
There has to be a standard that we hold to. And
Absolutely.
what your point is saying, well, we have a standard of morality too. You take God out, you take Scripture out. Your standard is what? Which we'll get into.
Exactly. We'll hit that later. Because
Yeah.
as a Christian, specifically, let's talk to Christians for a second. Christian, what is your standard referent? Because if you've got one,
Yeah.
we all have
Yeah.
one.
You either make one up yourself, borrow something
Exactly.
from another, or you have a.
Why do we see what we see what we see in the culture today is because, well, you got your values and I got my
Yeah.
values, and look, without that standard reference, things get crazy really quick,
They
and
do.
that's unfortunately what we see. And by the way, it doesn't matter how sincere you are in your belief. It doesn't matter, that at all, because
Right.
look, I could do it like this. That short ruler. If you want to say that it's truth because, well, we all believe this, we've all been trained this. What if I start going to all the carpenters who get paid by the foot? I go to the carpenter the carpet layers,
Yeah.
and they get paid by the foot. Which one are they going to vote on? You
Yeah.
see, because if it becomes this all
Sure.
vote on it thing,
Yeah,
guess
it's
what?
an arbitrary thing that I'm going to grasp at.
It's extremely important that we
Yeah.
have that standard reference, or else
Yeah.
things are not
And
going to work.
And that applies across. I mean, nautical terms. You want the stars. You got to have some referent to navigate. You got to almost everything requires some kind of true north or some kind of guide, a map. I mean, what if I told you I live at 28 Fifth Street and you turn left, right, but all those directions are wrong.
Yeah.
The standard referent is no, that's not the right street. They're not. My address is
Exactly.
here. You would never end up at the right place.
Exactly.
Which I can say the same thing about heaven. Then.
Oh,
here,
yeah.
Here are the
Absolutely.
directions to heaven. Here's how Jesus says to approach heaven.
Yep.
You can't make up your rules to try to get there because he's already been the standard referent, which is.
And I've always wanted to preach a gospel message on the gospel according to Garment.
Yeah,
Where I take all where I take all those little clips, make a U-turn,
Yeah.
turn right, turn
Yeah.
left, and here's the point that I always got is like, look, dude, you do not have to do what your GPS tells you to do. If it tells you to turn left, you don't need to. You can keep on going
Sure.
straight.
Do whatever you do. Whatever you
Correct.
like. Yeah.
Do whatever you want. But I guarantee you this: if you never do what that thing tells you to do, you're never going to get to where you told it you want to get to.
Where you want to get to.
If I want to get to heaven, well, here's how you get there.
Yeah.
Well, this is what you do. No, I don't want to do that.
I got my own rules.
You're free to do that.
Think of how dangerous that could be, because some of those are warnings like don't go there.
Yep.
Because that's a cliff
Yep.
or a river or a
Yep.
bridge that is cut in half, and you're like, I'm going to ignore it, misunderstanding the truth or misunderstanding the standard referent could have major consequences on you. And go ahead.
I was going to show there's some statistics to back that up, because it's like when youth don't have
Yeah.
a standard referent, they're 36% more likely to lie to a parent. They're 48% more likely to cheat. They're 2 times more likely to hurt somebody physically. They're 3 times more likely to use illegal drugs, and they're 6 times more likely to commit suicide. So having this standard referent, if you don't have that solid foundation from which to think, it's a mess.
Yeah,
and we're living it.
And what are people teaching today? I mean, teaching in high schools basically that you're an accident. If your
Yep.
standard referent is you came from nothing, you are nothing, you're stardust, you're a pile of goo, your love for that person doesn't really exist. Everything here is kind of an illusory. You can't control your thoughts or your free
That's
will.
right.
No wonder it's 6 times more.
Absolutely.
I got nothing to live for.
Absolutely.
And then we get mad at like the world, like the Madoffs or the people that go through the system and then steal and go, well that's what does it matter?
That's the way they're wired.
Yeah, it's like, that's what I learned for the last 8 years.
I tell you, I talk with a lot of young folks, and one of the illustrations that I use with the young ladies especially is I show there's an old Dove commercial. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
The lady comes in,
Yep.
sits down, and makeup and hair and camera. And
it's beautiful.
then
It's a great,
And when you see the billboard, you're like, wow. But in real life, I'm not trying to denigrate her, but
Yeah.
it's a far cry
doesn't
different
look
from
like
what you
that.
see when you
Yeah.
walk into what you see up on a billboard. And I tell these young ladies, I said, young ladies, if you think your value is based on how pretty you are, how smart you are, how talented you are, how well you look compared to a billboard or magazine, you can never measure up.
If that becomes the standard referent,
That's it. And think about it. Suicide's the number 2 killer of the teenage girls in America, the most Christian nation on the planet. Suicide, the number 2 killer of our teens. How in the world can that be? And I'm going to say to you that I firmly believe it's because they have been given the wrong standard referent.
Of course.
They're trying to measure up to something that they can't.
And whether it's off one way or the other, because that's the wrong way up. So you're always looking at yourself like I can't measure. Or you take evolution, it's down, you're nothing. So either way, I'm looking at the wrong standard. I'm messing myself up.
See, if there is
no meaning, or I can't match.
That's right. If there is a God, where does your value come from?
From Him, and because
the
of
fact
His love
that you're
for
created in His
image.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if there is no God, where does your value come from?
Just a billboard of an animal. I mean, you don't even know.
This isn't rocket science.
Yeah. No, it's simple stuff.
I mean, it truly isn't. If you want to understand,
it is complicated because we sent some people out.
Yep.
Let's go to this now.
Oh yeah,
to
absolutely.
talk to them and just because I would think you ask me and I'm I know that.
Yeah.
But you go
What
out.
is truth?
You go out today, especially in this political climate, in this cultural climate, you're going to get a lot of these confused answers. And so take a look at this. This is debunked and mic'd up.
What is truth?
Truth is truth. It's the way things really are. Whether you like it or not, you have to accept it.
What is truth? Honesty.
What is truth? What is truth? It's a good question.
Thank you.
Real.
Real?
What's truth?
Oh, truth is, for you it might be something different, but for me it's the Word of God.
Word of God.
Yeah.
What's truth?
What do you mean?
When you think of the word truth, the concept of truth, what's truth?
Your version of it.
My version?
Yeah.
Like my version of the truth?
Everyone's own version.
So, like, truth is basically subjective.
Yeah. Yeah. Emotional.
Your version of the truth appeals to moral relativism. And moral relativism is far more dangerous than you might imagine. Think of the implications of moral relativism. If there's no objective morality, and we're the arbiters of what is right and wrong, then there's no such thing as sin, since everything we do is right in our own eyes. And if there's no sin, then we don't need redemption. There's nothing to be forgiven for. And if we don't need redemption, then Jesus' death on the cross is meaningless. Therein lies the gravest danger of adopting a relativistic position on morality.
Your heart breaks, man.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at that, it's just your heart breaks. Well, it's what you think, and I think it's honesty. Look, it can't be honesty because, like I told you, my ruler, if it's this big and I believe it, I've been trained it, and I believe it, it doesn't mean it's true.
Honesty is another word for your opinion and what you think of something.
Exactly.
Because honestly, I can say, honestly, I think you're beautiful. Well, you can honestly go, I don't think she's beautiful.
Yep.
So it doesn't mean she is or isn't, or he is or he isn't. So
There's this
an opinion-
confusion.
Right. Well, the confusion comes between, I think, the two terms.
Yes.
And the way we kind of look at it. You touched
Yes.
a little bit on it. There's objective truth.
Right.
Right. And then there's subjective opinion.
Right.
Or preference, we would
Exactly.
call it. And some people call, that can even be subjective truth because I am the subject, so I can go, I like ice cream.
Right.
And go, well, that is true.
Right.
But we're still making the statement it's true that I like ice cream. So there's still truth claims we got to come back to.
Yep.
And I interviewed J. Warner Wallace,
Yes,
cold case homicide detective,
Excellent.
a few weeks ago, and he kind of covers it really well. So let's
good. Yeah,
cut
that's
to
good.
The Bub and Bob show here and a little excerpt.
This is a glass of water.
Yeah.
This is defined by the object called the glass
Yeah.
and the object called water. My opinion cannot change this. I cannot by opinion say this is a glass of tequila.
Yeah.
I can't make that happen. My opinion, my personal subject, I'm the subject. I cannot make that tequila by changing the definition. Part of this is we have to help people to see that yes, there are subjective things. I like water. I, as the subject, get to decide that claim.
And that's a preference.
As a preference, I make that claim true because the subject decides that I like water.
But it would still be true that Jim likes water. You still have to come to a truth.
Well, but this is water. That's an objective
yeah.
claim based on the object called water. This is definition of water that fits that definition. That's what it is. So there, in this room right now, we can make two kinds of claims: objective claims and subjective claims. What we have to help people understand is that both can exist, but they are two different claims.
That's a great point.
It's good stuff.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Your subjective point of view can't change an objective thing.
Exactly. And see, that's why to me, fleshing out that whole subjective truth, objective truth, I mean, it's great what he said. Simply put, subjective truth can't be tested.
Right.
I mean, that's your opinion, I feel, and everything. Whereas objective truth, you can test it. You can test the evidence, what you see against the evidence. And my simple illustration, again, I'm a simple guy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I try to keep everything as simple as possible because I can't get too deep, is we played off of it on the debunked video.
Yeah.
You know, M&M's is
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
So M&M's is the best candy in the world. That's my truth.
Yeah, and why would I argue that? What does it matter? It has no bearing on anything. No, it isn't, Carl.
Well,
yes, it is. No, it isn't.
You're wrong.
Yeah.
You're wrong.
No, you're wrong. I mean, there's no way to prove it. No way to do. Yeah.
Welcome to our world, man. We're all fighting over this kind of stuff right now.
But objective truth.
But objective truth would be me saying that, look, the more M&Ms that I eat, the more weight that I lose.
And you're like, you can verify that.
I can verify it by telling you that, no, more M&Ms that I eat, the more I look like an M&M.
Right.
So it doesn't work. I mean, no matter how much I want that to be true, it's not true. You can test that.
Yeah.
Eat a gallon of M&Ms every day, you are not going to lose weight.
Yeah. So you have some, like, there's a couple things we talked about earlier, the Common Core thing.
Yeah. This is really important because let me throw some statements out to you here. Just throw some statements out to you here. This is fact or opinion. Copying homework assignments is wrong.
Okay.
Cursing in school is inappropriate behavior.
Okay.
All men are created equal. Is that a fact or is that an opinion? And what has blown me out of the water is I'm in the churches most of the time. I'm in Christian camps and all this sort of a thing. And more I'm getting people saying opinion.
Interesting.
I was shocked. I mean, it's like 50%.
You can see why.
I do know why.
Yeah.
I do know
Yes.
why now, because every one of those statements are pulled. Every one of them are directly pulled out of the Common Core. So in our government schools today, we have children that this is exactly what they're being. How'd you like to be a teacher in today's? Oh, copying homework, cheating.
Yep.
That's your opinion that that's wrong. So it's okay if we do it.
Yep.
How can you teach? I mean, it's done. Cursing in school is inappropriate behavior. No wonder we're becoming so crude. We're a crude culture with this because we've lost it. Now, most Christians that are solid in their faith are going to say, well, that's a fact. It's a fact that cheating is wrong. It's
Maybe
a fact.
even not. Maybe even not. I think even because it's almost a trick in your head. Because if you said it's 5 + 5 = 10,
right?
Fact. And then the minute you move into some moral thing, everyone goes, well, that's not fact, that's opinion, and we forget that God again is the standard referent.
Exactly.
And as much as with the referent is 5 + 5 = 10, it's as true as you shall not commit adultery.
Yep.
Or you should not lie.
And see,
we're like, as soon
that's
as that is, it's a fact you shouldn't do it.
And that's the point.
But the thing is over here. And I think this may be a good point, which is where people get confused or they get emotionally tied to it, is nowhere over 5 + 5 = 10 = an ought. It doesn't tell you ought to do something.
Right.
This fact tells you ought to live a certain way. And the minute you infringe on me and what I want my rights to be or my truth to be, emotions get involved, and then they're like, that is not true. It's not true for me anyway.
That's right.
But I can't say that over here, although they're equal.
In our culture, truth may be deemed offensive, in which case it's dismissed outright. Abdul Murray, in his excellent book, Saving Truth, explains that in a post-truth world, the kind of world we're living in, preferences, emotions, and subjective opinions are elevated above objective truth. Now, if truth happens to line up with what I prefer, then it's welcome. However, if it does not fit my preferences, then it is dismissed as offensive. The word offensive is used as a solvent in an attempt to completely dissolve the truth and render it irrelevant.
See, this is the biggie, man. The only reason that we can say for a fact that cheating is wrong and cursing is inappropriate is because we have a standard referent, the Word of God, that tells us that cheating is wrong, that lying is wrong, that, all men are created equal. Think about that. I mean, without a God that created us in His image, we are not created equal.
No, we just made up a good term and used it in our language of forming America, and saying, but when you hear that whole thing that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, no other worldview can say that opening statement.
If you take it,
then everything falls apart. Your Constitution falls apart. Your laws fall apart. Everything falls apart. Your home falls apart. But people can still say, I don't believe it.
Sure.
But they still borrow from it to live it.
Absolutely.
It's unlivable in another way.
Absolutely. That's one of the challenges that I use a lot with the non-Christian, the atheist who wants to say, well, look, I don't need God to have morals. No, you don't.
No.
But you want my morals, but you don't want my God. And quite frankly, I'm not going to allow you to have my morals without my God.
And what we're not even saying, I mean, I think there's confusion there. It's like we're not even saying you can't have morals. Of course you can.
Oh,
but
of course you can't
ground your morals.
No. That's
you
right.
You have no standard again to ground them.
Because you're
so
wired
now
that
you're
way.
making stuff up.
If you're wired to believe that being nice to somebody is, well, I'm wired that you got something I want, I'm taking it from you.
And then this third guy is wired to kill both of you.
Exactly.
It's like, well, then where do you stop? Why are there laws? Why is a red light bad? Why not? You know, and I think personally, everybody gets that, kind of like the video said. The minute I take your money out of your bank and go, my truth is something else, then you're like, whoa. Something is wrong. I don't like that. And it's not because a whole lot of people agreed to that. It's because you know inside, as created in the image of God, that taking something that belongs to another person is wrong. Hurting another person for no reason is wrong. Well, so are the first two commandments, right?
That's right.
Is having a different God and not giving God his due respect. Those are equally flawed, things if you don't do them, and they're going to hurt you.
I use with the young people when I'm doing. I just used it a couple weeks ago. As a matter of fact, I'm in a big group and I'm trying to flesh this point out, and I want them to get it. And there's a young man that's sitting there and he's got his cell phone in his hand.
Yeah.
So I walk up and I take the phone from him and say, "Hey, thank you for keeping my phone for me." And I put it in my pocket. Like, what?
Yeah, perfect.
Like, what? It's like, well, this is my phone. I'm bigger than you, and this is my phone. I want it, so therefore it's my phone. I'm wired this way.
That?
And by the way, do any of you others have any of my phones out there? And all the kids are like tucking their phone.
I'm never going to get.
They're tucking their phones, dude.
Yeah.
And so it's like, look, if there is no absolute standard, and that's why I have to say to the Christian again, if your absolute standard is not the Word of God, if that is not your standard reference, if that's not your foundation that you're starting your thinking from, we're done.
Yeah.
We're absolutely done.
Well, where do you go? Yeah,
exactly.
So let's summarize a little bit. Let's go. Let's tackle the ones that we're going back to the video.
Yeah.
There's no truth. Truth is relative. True for you, but not for me. And speak your truth. Now, there's no truth. I think it's easily debunked right away. For that to be true would have to be false, because you're saying there's no truth, so that must be true that there's no truth. You're self-destruct.
When someone claims there's no such thing as objective truth, there are two ways that you can respond. First, you can ask a simple question. Is that true? That confronts the person with the self-defeating nature of such a claim. After all, the person is affirming an objective truth while attempting to establish the non-existence of objective truths. Second, one can provide a counterexample. 2 apples and 2 apples is 4 apples. That statement is objectively true. It's not a matter of opinion. If you grew up in a culture where everyone believed it was 5, everyone would be wrong. If you were always taught that the answer is 3, you've been taught wrong. If you hate the number 4 and find it offensive, it's still 4. If you have never been born, it would still be 4. Bottom line, objective truth has nothing to do with you, the subject.
If it's relative, then it doesn't apply to me. Then that statement applies to no one but your own personal thing.
Exactly.
So there is actually no truth I can talk to you about. It's all in my head, so it becomes useless.
So we can claim them as subjective truth. Those are your opinions.
I would say it's a subjective opinion or a subjective statement. I still don't like the subjective truth.
Yeah. I agree with
you.
Right,
because of that. Because hold that word. But even if you were to say that and we were to make it, we gave that to them.
Right.
Then you got to realize at least that there's 2 different things, and we got to make sure we understand the 2 differently. Because it goes back to everything we just talked about. That was blown away. The true for you but not for me is another form of saying the same thing. It's only true for me, so it becomes relative again.
Right.
And then so if I tell you to do something, you're like, that's not true.
That's only for you.
Yeah. And if a cop shows up, I'm like, why are you arresting me?
Yeah, that's your sign. That's not my sign.
We get nowhere. You can't have a conversation. There's no laws of logic. There's no way to live. It becomes unlivable.
Absolutely.
And then we got the famous one, speak your truth.
Ooh, that's a good one.
We will tackle for 20 minutes next time. Because this one is really crucial. This is where the rubber hits the road. I think you can see in the other ones, it gets a little silly and everyone knows that that's not what you're doing. But the speak your truth, huge in culture today, and a big thing we're going to tackle next time. Adios.
Adios.